That Palusa guy thinks that I just love him. I buy like 40 at a time. So sorry about that.
Well, that is very, very generous of you. We should ask for a rebate on our bill.
Yeah.
There's no conflict of interest in it.
What a drive back and forth to Laverne though. They can't speak English and I can't speak Spanish and well, we're Google translating it. Talking about hog barns.
There's an education in it for everybody.
Making the list of what your wife owes you for this, or?
She got me into
No.
this. She called me and said, there's a truck on the side of the road. You better go help them. All right. Here we go.
Little did you know.
So is there like truck getting fixed or?
Yeah, the gas in the.
There's an end in
Yeah,
sight to this?
They thought that they were gonna drop the fuel tank right in the parking lot here. I ain't gonna work, guys. That's what they thought, but it's in Sioux Falls somewhere.
12 o'clock, so start the meeting, if you'll rise and do the pledge of allegiance with me. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, you got roll call.
I do, thank you.
Everybody's got a copy of the agenda in front of them. Is there any additions or corrections?
There's some last minute bills that I added about 40 minutes ago.
Anything else? Make a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
On behalf of anybody else? Okay. Moving on, approval of past minutes of last month's meeting. Those are attached. Trying to go over them, I did not see any corrections, so unless anybody else had any corrections. Take a motion to approve the minutes of last month's meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve last meeting's agenda minutes.
Second?
Motion and second to approve last month's meetings. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Moving on, approval of financial items.
I don't have any updates from fiscal year 23's audit and financial statements. Last month, I let you know that they did request some single audit information, and we do have our extension from the state, but no other updates on that. You'll see down below into new action that KRP did return a proposal for audit services for the year ending 2025 and beyond, basically with an option for both entities to continue in perpetuity until one of us decides that we're moving on. I'd asked Mr. Jorth to consider removing that from policy, you know, the deadline of a RFP every 3 years. And then when I contacted the lawyer, I just said, do you have any issue with this? And he said, absolutely not, just with the shortage of audit firms around the area and within the state. And the fact that the state is actually denying people to do audits. So I'm happy about that they're willing to take us on and keep us as a client, and hopefully the relationship gets a little easier in the future as they catch up and we get out of single audit stage from ESSER dollars. Also wanted to just let you know that I received an email from Lyon County Riverboat Foundation Executive Director Ken Kirkfleet that foundation dollars are going to change, and they're going to be coming in a annual or monthly distribution. I haven't quite figured it out yet, but I had to give them an ACH. Right now it comes quarterly. So whatever they paid us this year, they're going to adjust for the rest of the year and make it monthly. And then I'm going to try to get some more information about how they're going to pay us in the future. But doesn't sound like the dollar amounts are going to change, just how they distribute it. So
Does that,
Previously it was quarterly.
quarterly.
does that cause a lot of adjustments on your end or not really? No.
No.
we've always usually just tried to budget off of the previous year anyways. And so it's always went up. So hopefully that continues, but this just protects, I think, the riverboat from maybe.
Over or under estimating is.
Exactly.
So, no, no extra work on my part, just
Yeah.
Different
We did
extra
that
receipts.
based on the previous year for them, or is that?
It's come in real time, actually quarterly.
Okay.
Yep. So the previous quarter, then we've received the dividend check essentially from the previous quarter.
Okay.
So now it's just they're gonna use the previous year.
Vacation adjustment.
That's how I interpreted it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm.
So I don't know if other entities were asking for something monthly instead of quarterly,
Sure.
I don't know.
Are you notified ahead of time, like what that, you don't have any idea?
Nope, I don't know it until I get the check in my
Okay.
hand.
Great.
Mhm. And I can provide you guys with sort of
The
a
history.
history of what we've received, so can do that next month.
Okay. Thank you.
And then financial reports, we'll start with the activities report. As you can see, the balances are down below. Darcia's gonna give a report on the hot lunch fund, but the only other one is, your student construction, and I believe there's, a closing happening tomorrow, so, that should be positive before year end, which makes me happy. And then again, in split fund, you can see our balance there, and we're gonna continue to give, HSA contributions to our staff that choose the $4,000 high deductible health plan, and that will happen in July. And then any new staff in September. So that'll take another chunk of those dollars, but that was our intention, and then rates did go down this year, so we were able to pass those savings along to the staff as well. Special revenue fund, management, PEPAL, Pearl, Save, and debt service. Management fund, as you can see, has $114,000. If you remember, for a recent budget, we did increase our levy to prepare for paying our property and casualty insurance, as well as any potential deductibles in the future. So we do have an increase coming, so we'll run it at a negative after we pay EMC Frontier Insurance when that bill is presented to us, but then we'll recoup those dollars throughout the year. Physical plant and equipment levy is $298,000. The Pearl levy, $130,000, and then our save is right around $3.4 million. As you can see, I have a balance in debt service, which I normally don't do, but I made a transfer in preparation for our July 1st principal and interest that is coming due. Just for whatever reason, I hit the post button for July, so that's why there's a balance in there. You'll see those bills on the July report, what I actually have to pay for that. And then the annual treasurer's report, that is your general fund. It's kind of a recap of kind of what goes out in and out each month. And then when we close out June 30th, I'll present a report from this current year, and I'll present a report for the new fiscal year going forward as of July. So you'll see two different reports for this for a couple months until we can completely close out the year, which is not usually until the end of September. So I don't really have anything specific to report in the general fund. As you can see, our cash balance is still sitting fairly healthy, even though we aren't levying for cash anymore. So we're doing okay on cash, and from what I can tell, our expenditures are going to be down just a little bit, maybe even, but I think they're going to be down. So that's what I have to report on financial reports. And then again, I did add some last minute bills that came in Friday afternoon and this morning from a few people. So if you have any questions specifically to something, let me know. There's a lot.
Anybody else have any questions at all? The financial items as listed? If not, then we'll take a motion in a second to approve those when you're ready.
I'll make a motion to approve the financial items as listed.
I'll second.
Motion and a second to approve the financial items as listed. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Administrative reports.
You bet. Celebrations first. Received notification that Ben Gerleman was named the Class 1A Region 1 Girls Golf Coach of the Year. Girls, like we said last month, qualified for the state tournament. So Mariah Gerleman was, I believe, 10th overall as an individual, and the team, I believe, finished 15th. So great season for them. 4 straight years, so nice recognition for Mr. Gerleman for his work with the girls. And then as far as community recognition, really, as we kind of come to the close of the school year, really want to thank Rochelle Herbert, Teresa Hugendorn, and then you've heard us talk about a teacher that had helped out, Joni Brubold, excuse me. Joni is an ag teacher from Decorah. She reviewed those SAE projects prior to the district contests and state convention. We attempted to pay her, but she is not going to cash our check, so she wanted to donate her time. So really appreciated her willingness to kind of give back to the program. She says she helps other first year in chapters that are without as well. She had sent Jackie and I a message and said she doesn't want to accept payment for that we try to provide. So Rochelle and Teresa, we've talked about them multiple times over the course of the full year. Program wouldn't have been able to sustain itself without their help. So also really like to thank Mr. Engelman for his leadership and all of his extra time and effort with the FFA program. So they're kind of handing the reins to Mr. Dijstermars. He's gone for the summer, so both Rochelle and Teresa are going to also help with fair this summer, but next summer that'll transition as well. So thanks to those 3 ladies for all their help. And then I know Mr. Harmon wanted to thank Avera for donating Mr. Freeze during track and field day. That was kind of their sweet treat after their competition that last Monday of the school year. So
It's been the hottest day of the school year so far. Look, it's a good day to have.
anybody else you guys would like to recognize?
Joni, which is she gonna help out with next year too, in the first year, or is she?
Davis
Yeah.
will, yeah, I think Davis is will be connected more to kind of our area,
Okay.
kind of Northwest Iowa district. So if he needs help and support, I would expect that would come locally rather than Joni. I'm sure she would help out because she's got
Where
some
was he from originally? He's from around here.
MOC Floyd Downs.
Got it, okay.
Yep.
I thought it was.
I think that Joni was like Rochelle's niece or something. wasn't it?
Correct.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah, okay,
So that was the connection.
very good. Definitely a big thank you to all those helping out. Last year. Principal report, Mr. Harmon.
Finished up the school year, grades are in, split it out to parents. So start finishing up what we need to do for the year's end for reports and those types of things. Any changes, looking at for QAS, the character strong. Committee will deal with those in August, before the school year starts. So I'd like to thank everyone for such a great year, and thank you for all your efforts to get us out for Memorial Day. That was a really, really big change. So that was well received.
Hey, it'll help somebody, but just want to give you a heads up with some student handbook edits that are going to be forthcoming. The attendance policy, which was passed through legislation that we're waiting on some guidance for, is going to impact, especially with the high school, with Jeff Jager and myself. And then the academic and eligibility, a little bit, the scholarship rule has been altered. So it used to be 30 calendar days, it's going to be 20 calendar days. Athletic activity, eligibility things. There's just a handful of things involving a little bit with cell phones, a little bit with attendance, and a little bit with academic integrity with the presence of AI. Just a few different So just a heads up.
Like a lot of things with the legislature, things are being more and more mandated. And so one of those things that Jason alluded to is compulsory attendance. And there's going to be increased focus around excessive absenteeism. And so previously, we've been able to develop those locally, those policies locally. So now it's going to be statewide mandates. And so we're waiting for the School Board Association to provide us guidance with those policies to update our policies and ultimately the student handbook. But there's like 6 categories that are going to be allowed for excused absences. And so we're waiting for exactly the interpretation from the School Board Association before we do something locally. So that's where Jason's kind of referencing those handbook edits that are coming up. And then, like he said, interesting to me, but the legislature is backing off on the no pass, no play rule from 30 calendar days to 20 days. So it'll be, those ripple effects will be felt locally. If we want to have something that's more strict and we want to maintain the 30 calendar days, we can do that. But again, we're waiting for maybe some guidance to do something that's more consistent with the School Board Association when it comes to those policies.
So currently it's 30 calendar days that they can.
That you have to sit out if
we
you
have
fail
Got it.
at the end of a semester. And then we've always had a kind of a quarter, 2-week
Yeah.
mandatory
Yeah.
ineligibility period. That's, again, more strict than what the 30 days at the end of the semester has been previously.
Are they anticipating those changes coming soon, or?
I would anticipate we're gonna see something in July. Yep, and then that's when we typically at our July meeting, we approve our student handbook, staff handbook, and then have those ready to go for the start of school year. If not, then like we did last year, we'll have to update once we do have that guidance.
Any questions for superintendent?
But, so I got kind of 5 things I'd like to review. If you've been out north of town to the FFA property, you've seen that foundation and footings have been poured at the new bus barn. So we just had a construction meeting this morning. Timeline's delayed about 3 weeks, so we're expecting a kind of a change order on the timeline. As you recall, we were supposed to be done by substantial completion by October 1st. Now we're looking at the 3rd week in October. Really, those 3 weeks that we lost kind of in transition for the conditional permitting. So they can make some time up, they will make some time up, but everything should be enclosed in that structure by September. Our whole goal was to have everything available by the time snow flew next winter. We should still meet that. But they're rearranging all their subs and everything, just trying to re-coordinate that. As far as, testing when it comes to the soils and the concrete that's already been poured, we're within all limits, everything's passed, so everything's looking good, even though it's been really wet. So encouraged by that. As Scott told us, he's been helping transport the playground. They got started a week and a half earlier than we had anticipated. We didn't think they were going to get here until next Monday. They actually called last week and said they finished their previous job sooner. So that's why we've kind of given them permission to get started early. And then the middle school bridge, if you're on the east side of the building, you'll see they'll start some prep work this week, some fencing of that area, but there'll be a crane on Story Street next week. So they'll start demoing the current bridge, and they hope to be able to use the crane to begin the construction phase all in that week next week. So hopefully the crane only limits traffic for 1 week. Everything can be done and taken care of in next week. So those are kind of the facility updates. Industrial Tech House, like Jackie kind of referenced, it's going to be moved tomorrow. So Tyler and Kelsey will take ownership of that, final sales price, $174,910, so just under $175,000. Our expenses were right around $140,000, so about a $35,000 profit for the program. Again, they assumed some of the expenses over the course of this last year. We had about $18,000 of expenses that we incurred. If you remember, the sales price was $156, so added about $19,000 to the ultimate sales price from what they purchased it for last year. So excited about that, and then we'll begin our conversations about what we want to do next for next year. So those are the updates for those two things. I put a copy of kind of preliminary ISATS results. I'm not going to spend a lot of time today on this, but I do want to really congratulate the students on their performance and our teachers for their work with kids over the course of the last year. A lot of success in the English language arts column. If you're looking on that front page, you can see there are 4 grade levels where 90% of kids are proficient in reading, English language arts, written expression. Overall, the entire 3rd grade through 11th grade, 89% of our kids are proficient when they took those assessments. So really nice celebration. Math, some really nice gains there. 2 classes with 90% or better performance as well. So those 2 areas specifically. Science is the area where we've got the most area for growth. The tricky thing with science is only 3 grade levels take that science assessment each year. So it's harder to measure their growth year over year. So the second page, you can see I've kind of given you the year over year comparison. So that class of 2025, those are the juniors. The last 4 years they've taken that assessment. All the way down to our 3rd graders at the bottom of that page. This is the first time they've ever taken that assessment. So we monitor that and track that. And then that 3rd page, you can kind of see I clustered the high school, middle school, elementary, the entire building. So I will tell you, both English and math, this year's scores were improvements over last year's scores. So we made growth in English and math in all categories, high school, middle school, elementary, and then obviously the district as a whole. So I just wanted to kind of give you guys that so you can kind of dig into it. If you've got questions, be happy to answer them as we go forward. But again, really the credit goes to the kids. They're the ones that took the tests and scored really well, and the teachers because of all their work with the kids over the course of the entire school year. So kudos to both of those. Next thing, school-based counseling services will be a little bit different next year. Some of you may recall us talking about Michael Henning in Creative Living out of Rock Valley. Michael's accepted a position outside of Creative Living, and Creative Living has been unable to fill his position. And so historically in the past, he spent a day in our district working with kids besides, Mrs. Gerber and Mrs. Harmon. And so there's a referral process where we'll continue to use Creative Living, but it will be only via telehealth. Danielle Raveling works for Rising Hope, kind of a South Dakota-based mental health counseling services. Because we've lost the in-person school-based counseling services, Danielle's going to kind of step into that role. Different organization, similar type of support, but just wanted you guys to kind of understand that transition. The mental health field system-wide, whether you're looking at schools, whether you're looking at, private practice or even healthcare facilities, it's just a high demand field right now. And so as those transitions happen with those counselors, unfortunately, a lot of times there's a break in service. So Creative Living, like I said, the telehealth, families can continue to receive that support, but it'll just be over the computer. They want to continue with Creative Living. Otherwise, any referrals that we start to make next year will be to Rising. So I just wanted to make sure you guys were aware of that as well. And then superintendent evaluation, our plan is we had tentatively scheduled with Scott and Amy for next Tuesday, the 16th at 6 o'clock. That works for you guys,
The 18th.
18th, sorry. Next Tuesday is 18th.
That work for you guys? One that after wasn't much. You don't think so?
Oh, that's gonna be gone for a week.
What other dates?
Throw out some dates, yeah, you tell me.
Yeah.
She's gone that whole week, man. About the 24th, Monday the 24th.
Date doesn't work for me.
Okay. Tuesday the 25th. You. Okay. Do you want to do 5 o'clock or do you want to do 6 o'clock?
5 works
Good
well
at
for me, if
5
we,
o'clock is
when we're done.
Tuesday, the 25th at 5.
And so what I'll do is I'll email you guys kind of my reflections and the template that we've used in the past. And when we meet, for those that are new to that process, we kind of review that process. And whether we continue to use that process after this evaluation, or we want to bring the school board association back and do a work session like we've done in the past to get consensus again on that process. This time, we'll use the one that we've had in the past. If we want to make any changes or seek additional support, we can partner with the School Board Association or School Administrators of Iowa or any other organization that the board would like to.
Okay. We will schedule that for June 25th at 5 o'clock. Any board committee reports at this time? No old business, moving on to new business. Item 1, considered short amendment.
Jordan, I'll turn the floor to you.
Sounds good. Yeah, just, I think everyone got the letter that I sent for that with the structure changes with the AA from the legislation. It just makes sense to be able to hopefully continue to move forward working with Central Lyon, but cannot serve as the board. So just want to thank Jackie, Mr. Jorth, for your leadership with the board and each board member as well. So I don't think probably 99% of Iowans saw any of this change coming. So if I would have known that change was coming, wouldn't have ran to put you in the situation that finding another board member pretty shortly. So apologize for that, but I feel like it was a little bit out of my control. So
Completely understandable.
yeah, appreciate the time and the opportunity that I had to serve. So.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Jordan.
Anybody have any questions at all? Take a motion to approve Jordan's resignation.
I'll make a motion to approve his resignation.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'll write that in.
Pregnant pause.
Dramatic pause.
Dramatic pause. There you go.
Motion carries. So moving on, consider application process for school board vacancy, which
So I included what we used when we appointed Matt. It's got 6 questions. for folks to kind of reply to. They can submit a resume. As we receive these, I touch base with each of the candidates, and answer any questions, offer an opportunity to sit down and kind of review what it means to be a board member, share with them the school board association's kind of materials and access to that stuff. So if you guys are okay with the same application, we'll post our notice that I've also included, put a kind of an ad out on our social media, let people know. And we had 4 folks when we appointed Matt that I'll also kind of reach back out to and just say, hey, got another vacancy if you're interested. Let them know.
Yeah, definitely want to, those that have previously applied, if they'd be more than willing to reapply, we greatly appreciate that. Last time, there was a lot of conversation one-on-one before we got to the meeting to decide who we were going to pick, in that case Matt, but it makes our job a little bit tougher when we have so many, but it's a great problem to have, so we really appreciate having those applications, so. Anybody else have any questions about that or want to make any changes? If not, I will take a motion to approve that process.
I'll make a motion to approve the application process for the school board vacancy.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Okay, next item. Consider insurance renewal for 24-25.
Yeah, before I turn this over to Lisa, just like Jackie had referenced during her report, we had these preliminary conversations with Lisa in regards to property casualty insurances increasing. And that's why we had recommended increasing our management levy, because this is where we pay those fees. In addition to property casualty insurance, we've had equipment breakdown insurance for the last 4 years. Those premiums were up a similar percentage to what our property casualty rates are. Now the equipment breakdown, again, it's an insurance for any of our equipment. So something breaks down, we turn it into the insurance, and either hopefully we can get the repair costs paid for, or we can get a cash out option for it if it's so old that it doesn't make sense to repair it, or we can have our own folks do the work and then submit their time back to the insurance company. So this last year, our premium was like $97,000. So we've already, recouped about $38,000. We've got another series of claims submitted. We're anticipating about another $25,000 recouping. So all that money, we're estimating about $64,000 is, we like to think of it as a savings to the general fund. Yes, we're paying it out of management. Yes, our taxpayers are contributing to that. But $64,000 is roughly one teacher, right? So starting salary next year, $47,500. Or the FICA, IPERS, and their insurance is about another $20,000. So that's kind of how I like to think about that. But it's something that maybe we need to continue to talk about each year, because are we trading general fund for maybe a little bit higher tax rate because of the management cost? What's the board maybe comfortable with when it comes to equipment breakdown insurance? Just like when we, talk to Lisa, we talk about what are we comfortable with when it comes to deductibles? Do we take on a little bit more risk with some of our deductibles to try to keep the premium down, knowing that if there is an event, we turn around and end up probably paying a little bit more out of our pocket. So I just want to talk briefly about equipment breakdown insurance. I know there's new members and it's maybe a new concept, but really we're trying to save general fund dollars with the insurance so that we can put those towards the resources, teachers first and foremost, or any other general fund expense. So before I turn it over to Lisa, you guys have any questions about the equipment breakdown? Lisa, I'll turn it over to you. I know you handed out a packet, so.
I did. Before we start to look at that packet, I'm sure all of you have seen your own insurance policies go up. And people are wondering, why is this happening? Well, this is what you call a hard market. The last time we had a hard market like that, this was in the early 2000s. Hard market is defined as an upswing in insurance market cycle when premiums increase, coverage terms are restricted, and to find similar insurance is becoming less and less. So you could ask yourself, what causes a current hard market? Interest rates, poor investment results. So looking at EMC as a company, inflation in 2021 and 22 has caused the loss on the market portfolios for 21, or for 22, 23, and 24, which has caused those markets to go down. Inflation after COVID and construction costs went up 35% over 2 years, which has also increased construction costs 70%. Then you have social inflation. EMC as a general company has saw trends in litigation and lawsuits for both liability and property damages. And this is one that most of us can see throughout this year, our storms. In the last 5 years, EMC has paid out $123 billion average in annual costs for storm coverage. In Iowa, last year as a total, we had a great year. There was only 72 tornadoes that touched down in Iowa. This year, as of June 1st, there's already been 103. So quite a different trend this year in storm. So I don't see that point of things changing the scenario. However, you can only hope that with construction costs coming back down, it's a trickle effect. You know, they're trying to make up from what's happened the last 3 years, and so we have to get up here in order to hopefully come back down. Have we seen our insurance coverages go down? Well, since I've been working here, yes, we've seen them go down a little bit here or there. And then one of the major things, and I'm not sure if many of you know this with insurance companies, but insurance companies are insured by reinsurance companies. So these are the big companies that insure the little insurance companies like EMC that insure the schools. Well, they also have deductibles and certain retention that they have to keep themselves. Well, in the past, EMC has had to retain $10 million to pay out for these claims for some of their companies that they insure. Now they have to retain $40 million as their own company to pay out in claims. So this is some of the reasons why you're going to see some of these changes amongst these policies. Now, for you new board members here, one thing I will do for you, and I don't have all these numbers, is we have a sheet that will show you each building on the property grounds and what each building is insured for, but I don't have those specific numbers broken down yet from EMC. But I'll get you all a new packet that will show, you know, what is the current place set insured for, what are the lights insured for, what, you know, and we add these things continually down the road. For instance, they let me know when we added the new, you know, what do you call it? At
Press
the baseball, press box at the baseball field, you know, that gets sent to me, I get that added. So these little things are added throughout the year. And that gives you guys a good idea of knowing, you know, what's that insured for? How much was that? And what property's in there and things like that. So I'll get that to all of you probably for next meeting. So let's go through. Does anyone have any questions on that at all before I get started? Okay, so in our packet here that I brought in, I usually break it down for you between what we had last year and what we had this year. I try to highlight as far as this year what's changed. So I put the worst one at the top, which is the property coverage. I don't know yet what our blanket building amounts are at this time, but I do know that this is the premium that we will pay. You can see that last year we were at $74,000. We're increasing up to $80,000 for that. Not a big jump. You'll see a big jump in the increased value for all of our buildings. Those have all been increased. They actually came out and they looked at each building to make sure that it was valued correctly this year. And the main thing that we're looking at this year is all perils are at a $10,000 deductible. However, wind and hail will be applied separately to each building based on a 1% deductible. So if you look at the very last page of your packet, I have a scenario. The building we are currently sitting in is currently insured at $4,847,760. At a 1% deductible, if we have wind damage or a hailstorm on this building, the deductible will be $484,760. Now, we're all brick here, but the question is the roof. You know, what's gonna happen if you have a wind claim or hail claim to the roof? That's something that I feel there will be no coverage with this deductible. I'm not sure how much the roof costs, but
Yeah, add it all up, it's more than.
yeah. And then it also means there's a deductible on the business personal property. So if we have wind or hail damage to the personal property, which that's gonna look at all the items that are outside, and that's $58,754 would be that deductible. So that kind of gives you an idea of how the 1% deductible works. It's not a big deal on the little ticket booths, you know, but when you get to this type of building and this cost, it's a lot of money. So they ended up having to go with that kind of deductible option on this to make it affordable for these school districts, because you still have to look at theft, you have to look at fire, you have to look at some of those that are probably gonna also be something that could happen. Everything else in the policy that I have right now is basically the same as last year. Are there any questions on this portion? Flip the page, we have pollution liability coverage. This is gonna be any kind of pollution incident that could happen, everything from the FFA farm to maybe Mr. Allen's, I don't know what he would be doing, but it wouldn't be good and he'd pollute something and we'd get sued for it. That'd be your pollution liability coverage. Nothing changed there as far as premium. Crime coverage, this is gonna cover any of our clubs or organizations. I'm sure you guys have read in, different media posts where somebody has stolen money. I believe that's why we all have to pay online through the ticketing now to get into the school. Somebody ruined it for the rest of us. Well, it wasn't you, okay. This covers those crime problems that might be having. There is a slight increase on that one. Public officials and employment practices, if you turn the page, this is actually gonna, coverage applies to claims made against anyone that's in these organizations if someone was to come after any of the officials for the school. This also covers the different clubs and organizations as well. And then we'll go down to the workers' compensation coverage. At the beginning of the year, when we have the teachers in service before school starts, I usually come and I talk to the teachers about this, and they've really done an excellent job as far as, being confident. We've had a couple in the last month, but shouldn't be anything too significant. But we've been able to, I talked to the teachers because the main thing that changes the workers' compensation coverage, besides the payroll, is our experience modification factor. So how that works is the insurance company looks over the claims that we have had as employees in the last 3 years, and that determines the experience modification. So the worse claims there are, the higher that gets. I think we've had that number up to about 1.20 at one time. That can really increase the coverages. This is probably one of the lowest in the state right now compared to all the other schools. So this is an extremely good modification or factor right here. So that kept our workers' compensation premium low. This is probably the lowest I've seen this renew. Automobile coverage is on the next page. This one, this premium will constantly change throughout the year as we add new buses and new vehicles. But there are changes this year. They've increased the deductibles for both comprehensive and collision. We did change some of these last year to 2,000. However, we've also, this has gotten changed automatically through the company for hired auto. And then also any public auto deductibles. So if a teacher used their own personal vehicle because there weren't other school vehicles to haul kids over to George Little Rock for cross country, and they got into an accident, a $2,000 deductible would be placed on that vehicle as well, where before there wasn't that option. Umbrella coverage. This is in excess over Central Lyon's liability insurance. This is at $3 million. There was a slight increase on that. And then if you turn the page, the inland marine, this is where we put all of our builder's risk policies. So right now we have 2 builder's risk policies in place, one for the bus barn and one for the walkway bridge. Those are covered under this until they're completed, so that's where you see a significant increase in the premium. Once those are completed, they're put under the property and the liability portion, but these are just while it's being built.
Anything needed for the gym or the house moving?
The playground.
Yeah,
Playground.
I don't believe that is on here at this point, but I don't know that, are they adding new?
So for the house, they have to provide us with liability
Yeah,
to move it. And so,
They did.
and then we've got it, you know, that's the paperwork that we require of them.
group excess liability. This is something that we have our own policy with. This is going to cover $10 million on top of all of our own liability. We added this within the last 2 years. And then we also added $1 million for cyber liability. This is gonna ensure against telephone hacking, phishing scams, liability, and advertising injury.
Which, again, like most of you are seeing, is only happening more and more frequently. Mr. Harmon was our most recent victim, so.
Yeah, and there's some policies coming down the pipe that I can email to you that will help you maybe. I'm sure they're already putting in 2-factor authentication and stuff like that.
Yep.
We have that, and I'm with the bank too, and so I have to follow all their policies. I'm sure you do too. It's terrible, and I'm still getting them through. I mean, I get blocked emails from myself on there, and I'll email myself, you know, and I'm blocked, but then they let this guy come through, so it's,
They're pretty sophisticated.
yeah.
Going back to Matt's question, do we need to add anything because we're getting new playground equipment, or do we have to add anything at this time, or is there any buildings risk there because they're installing it?
I don't have anything right now, but yeah, I just need to know what they're doing and.
I can tell you.
ABC carries their own insurance, and so then once they have it installed, I'll get it.
It all depends on who's building it. Some builders will carry their own risk, and some require us to carry the risk. And so it just determines
And
on.
they didn't ask us to carry theirs.
Yeah. Also, that brings me back around to some of the other items, like if you guys are going to use something for boosters or something like that, if they will carry the risk, then you don't have to, and all you have to provide me with is a certificate of liability, and then it will be carried under them, and we don't have to be responsible for it. So if there is that option, I try and go that route. And so the total this year will be $213,260.93. Any questions?
Is there anything for like lots of wages, or if something were to happen to the building and it would have to close, or COVID and like hourly employees can't work? Is there anything for that?
When COVID closed, there was no coverage for any loss of wages.
Right, we received ESSER dollars, federal supplement dollars for
Yeah,
assisting with those lost wages.
in the state aid, we continue to receive state aid that was not withheld.
But no insurance, per se.
And so if we were to have a, like you said, a tornado or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
you know, we would have to apply for a waiver to the state to either go below the minimum number of hours that kids have to be in school, or we would have to make those up. And we would continue to receive state aid for salaries and all the benefits and stuff like that, unless we got that waiver from the state.
Does that include support staff too, or just teachers?
It supports that as well. Yep.
Now, if they're hurt while they're working, there would be a workers' compensation claim and then.
Lisa, in your opinion, I know EMC's kind of insurance coverage for schools and whatnot, but is there any other company that would be in quote?
The problem is you can't move anything from EMC or they won't write the package. They won't do liability here and let you have your auto over at wherever. It has to be this
Is
whole
there any other
package.
Group, like,
No, and honestly, the ones that used to be kind of in the door have faded away. I mean, there's a couple out there, but, you know, right now in Iowa, and you know this too, there's only 2 companies I can write homeowners with right now in Iowa. If you came in my door as a new customer. And so a lot of these companies are really struggling. And, you know, I look out there for different stuff and you know, it's not there. And the only good thing is, and I can tell you, if you guys talk to the utilities, they have EMC. And they had a major claim in the last year from a fire. And they went above and beyond on that. And it was multi-million-dollar claim. And they went above and beyond for that. So, I mean, they do the work for
Yeah.
what their premiums are. And that's one thing you have to be kind of comfortable with too, is if you do have that tornado or windstorm, are they gonna come and be there for you? And this is their deal. They're public entity only anymore. They used to do home and auto and everything, but this is all they do now is public entities like cities and schools. So. But I'm always looking.
Thank you, Lisa. Anybody have any other questions for Lisa about her?
Thanks, Lisa.
Any questions? Well, thanks, Lisa, for the information.
Yep.
So I will, if there's no other questions, I'll take the motion to approve the insurance renewal for 24-25 as listed.
There's a second.
Motion and second to approve insurance quotes as listed. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Next, consider milk and bread.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, here, I asked Darcia to come and kind of walk us through the milk and bread bids. They've given you a very kind of 10,000-foot view picture here up on the computer. Milk bids went out to Prairie Farms and Kemp's, as well as Stensland Dairy. Prairie Farms and Kemp's did provide quotes. Again, I just put, 5 things up there. And went out to Casey's Bakery, Hy-Vee, and then Panel Gold. And I, again, just put the 3 most commonly kind of utilized items. But Darcia's here to answer any questions that you might have about milk and bread bids, the market, and where we're at with these.
One of the reasons you get so few bids is because of the strict rules. I mean, well, milk is really just, there's not a lot of milk places. So once you get past a certain distance, they don't want to bid it because they've got costs and transporting and all that stuff. So really Lamar's, what used to be Wells Blue Bunny, divided into Kemp's and Prairie Farms. So those are really, that's really what that is. Wells Blue Bunny split off, and usually Prairie Farms is who we've had the last few years, and they're always about, I don't know, 3 or 4 cents more per little pint. However, like from last year or 2 years ago to last year, they only increased it by a penny, and it was up like well, the chocolate milk was 22 cents this past year, and it went up to 28 cents for this next year, which really is about a 22% increase. Part of that's the containers. There's a shortage of those the cartons. Yeah, and some schools on both coasts are already having to like figure out they're going to bulk milk. I mean, I don't know if you remember years ago with the big case. And I hope we don't go to that. Steve Bresky's like, we're not doing that. We're not doing it. But
We're back to small cartons,
we have,
even in the high school.
That's what we've
still get
always
small
used.
cartons
Well,
here,
when I was here, then we had a cup and like.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
That's probably.
And you-
That's what he's
That's what
talking.
you would like
He
to
would,
avoid.
he
he
does
does
not.
not want that. Anyway, he does not.
Another piece of equipment, another thing.
He'll not let him have milk, that's the case. But anyway,
Just go
that's
to-
probably one of the reasons the milk is going up. Because it's 22 cents on chocolate, or 22% on chocolate and 15% on and last year they were the same price, so, so it's a little interesting to me because we go through 3 times as much chocolate as we do white bread. Anyway, so it's really hard. I send bids out and usually get the 2 milk bids and 1 bread. And bread is really, there's a lot of stipulations, a lot of rules. It has to be whole grain. And now they lowered the sodium content. So like Casey's actually played with us all year and they brought me samples. I couldn't really taste the difference with the lower sodium. But the thing with the bread companies is like Pan of Gold actually is, I think out of the cities is where I sent the bid. I don't even know where a local bakery is. They used to have Bimbo in Sioux Falls. We got them 1 year. And now in 2018, I think they shut the door in Sioux Falls. It's just, I don't know why the bread companies, if it's expense in production or so it's really hard to get bids. Our
Shine in town, an option to bid it all.
Well, the thing about Sunshine is it has to be someone that produces it. I'm like 99% sure. You can't get someone that's, yeah, I don't know where they're getting
Where they're getting
all their bread, you know. But I could actually, you know, contact Brooks because the price is pretty spendy. I mean, bread, it's about 37 cents. If you break it down, like the hot dog and hamburger buns are 37 cents each. And, you know, a loaf of bread is what, $3.29. So, I mean, Amy asked me the other day, it's cheaper if I go to the store and buy bread. I would think it'd be cheaper for the school, but I think it's because of the requirements. And
The quote here too is for 12 hamburger buns and hot dog buns. If we're going down to, it's 8.
yeah,
So
very
it's
tax.
another, 33%. So
Delivered too.
delivered.
Yeah, it's all.
Well, and I'm not buying whole wheat, low sodium, like all the stipulations. Like, I mean, I'll just be honest.
And they,
Yeah, like,
Mine's are
right.
great.
So
Throw
we're
away
never
half of it
comparing-
when it gets
not
moldy in
comparing
place.
apples to apples.
So I can also get it from Martin Brothers because so many schools could not get it. And it comes in frozen, in boxes, take it out and thaw it. However, when I sometimes look when I make my orders and I look, sometimes they don't have it. Well, I have to order bread a week in advance from Casey's. I have to order for Monday, Wednesday, and Friday of the next week. Well, if I get to Tuesday and figure, well, I'm gonna order my hamburger buns from Mark Brothers next week. And when I get to Tuesday and I place my order, there's none in stock, like, now I'm screwed. Don't get hamburgers without buns, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I don't know, it's just efficiency, but
Is Martin
Yes.
Brothers. If you have to buy it from Martin Brothers, or if you put your order in, that comparable to what these prices.
I looked today and actually hot dog and hamburger bun, or the hamburger buns were the exact same, 37 cents. And actually hot dog buns were 42 cents each. So it's not cheaper actually to give them to Martin Brothers.
I'd rather be fresh than frozen.
Yeah, and
Quite
our,
frankly,
the lady that came and she's my, she comes and does our reports, audit, and she's from Cherokee, and she said, you guys are so lucky that we are close to Casey's, and she does her reports around here, because she said that it's such a good product, you know, the quality of the product is really good, but, I mean, you're paying for it, I guess. But they can mass produce for, I mean, everybody, I think, you know, West Lyon, Sioux Center, MOC, all the schools are getting it, plus they're producing for, you know, local residential purchasing.
thanks, Sarsha. Anybody have any other questions? If not, I will take a motion in a second to approve the milk bids from Prairie Farm and Casey's Bakery for this.
I'll make a motion to approve the milk bid from Prairie Farms and the bread bid from Casey's Bakery.
I'll second.
Got a motion and second to approve those milk and bread bids. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next, consider fees for 24, 2025.
So I've listed the fees down here at the bottom. I also attached a kind of a history of those fees in the attachments. Not proposing any changes to the fees. Then Darsha has an increase in 10 cents for lunch and maintaining free breakfasts for next year. And then a 50-cent increase for kind of a second entree. So when I met with Scott and Amy, they had asked for kind of just a review of our expenses. So that's that other attachment that I have there. If you were to scroll down to the bottom, we kind of broke it down. Jackie broke it down for us, and you know, where are we at? Because we know that we run a significant surplus in our nutrition fund. You get those reports each month. We did the free breakfast to try to eat into that, and really that led to $27,000 less at the end of this year compared to last year. So we finished just over $500,000 last year, just under $500,000 this year. And so if I'm zooming in here, you can kind of see where our expenses are coming from in the nutrition fund. Salaries, benefits, health insurance, that's equaling, you know, just over, you know, $200,000. And then the food supplies are about $210,000. And then equipment, that could be anything from ovens to benches and tables that kids are sitting on in the lunchroom to, you know, new trays and silverware. Could be anything for supplies and equipment. So you can see our expenses to date, $462,000, and our revenues, our sales, that's 210 almost. Parents are writing a check each month. Reimbursements are free and reduced lunch reimbursements from the USDA. And then our à la carte sales are just cash sales each day, about another $10,000 in interest. So, so when we're looking at meal prices for next year, the costs of the meals have went up. And I think Darcia provided that kind of explanation. Maybe the cheapest meal is around a little under $2, $1.75. The most expensive meal is around $2.50 to produce. Hence the increased 10 cents per meal.
So I would like to, so when I try to figure this out, I don't really look at the amount in the fund like I don't. But after seeing that, I think that I've sort of rethunk a little bit and think that we could maintain the same price for next year. Because I don't put that all together, like, I just go, all right, well, it's costing more to make the meal, and everything's up like 10 to 25%, so if we only go up 4%, that's not much. But then when in retrospect, in hindsight, having seen the numbers, I think we can probably maintain the same prices for next year. However, the a la carte is a little bit, so the second meal goes to a la carte sales. And I still think that there's really, they make some real strict rules about not having that cost more than the price of it. And I still think at $2.50, you should go from $2 to $2.50 on the second meal, but leave the first meal right where it's at next year. That would be my recommendation.
Because we talked about this a little bit too, with the balance that we have in our hot lunch fund, are they tracking down on that a little bit?
We got a memo in the school business officials report that said, you should try to maintain no more than a 3-month average of your expenses. And so if you're looking at, our expenses each month, they're running at $50,000 to $55,000 each month. So if our balance is right around $150,000, we've got about, $300,000 we need to try to eat into. I would say between now and our next audit. We had our audit, not this last November, but the November before. We were coming off of COVID, so there wasn't a lot of pressure from the state to eat into that. But I think that's becoming more of a conversation during those audits.
She told me that they backed off on being super hardcore enforcing that for the time being because there was so much free money being given. Like, we still got another check this year, like,
21
what do they call it? Supply chain assistance.
supply chains.
Which we don't really experience. So they keep giving you more money, but then they tell you, don't have this much money in your account. They're like trying to find ways to spend it without being wasteful.
Right.
It's sort of a catch-22.
Is it hard for you to get workers?
No, we're just kind of staying right where we need to be.
I didn't know, if paying the workers a little bit more,
We
if
actually
it
just
was.
gave them, like last year, they got quite significant raises and then this
And then
year
you
they
guys approved again in April, a $1 raise.
Yeah, I mean,
I
we're
just didn't
really,
know if
yeah.
that was.
I feel like when it comes to personnel, Darcia, number one, done a really good job of recruiting. We added 2 more folks because we had 2 that, one retired and one not working with us anymore. And so Darcia does a great job of identifying people that want to work in those roles. Plus, we've made an investment. We created kitchen manager positions, so it's opportunity for advancement within. And then we also, the hourly wage, we are competitive. I would
Yeah,
say
I
with
just-
similar type of,
just hired a new gal, based on your approving of
Yeah,
it.
I see that.
She's she's working at Sherry's Kitchen and she was at Primrose Country Boutique. She's a very qualified person and, I said, she said, oh, by the way, how much is the wage? And I said, I think it's 15, but I'm not sure. And she said, oh, that would be awesome. Like she said, making $12 over at Sherry's Kitchen. I mean, that's like, she thought that was like, it has me now like, oh, wow, something I wanted to do and I'm making $3 more an hour, so I think it's competitive, yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions?
So kind of amending what I have then,
From my perspective, I guess I look at this and we've got the full year's worth of expenses. And if you look at expenses with the equipment and stuff like now, basically our meals and food were about a break even, maybe lost $500-600, so. um, Yeah, I would agree with Darcia that we could keep these where they're at, and even the second entree, I wouldn't be opposed to keeping that at $2 either.
The second entree though, that's because of a guideline. We have to
Yeah,
charge
that's a
more
guideline that I
than,
have to meet.
the
It
meal,
can't
right?
cost more for the meal.
than what we're charging.
Can't cost, the
It
meal
can't,
can't.
the production of the meal, like the food cost of the meal.
Right, but if you charge less than what the meal costs, that's okay? Or it has to,
You have to charge more
More
than the
than-
meal costs.
okay.
So that's why that
That's
has to go up.
Mhm.
Got it.
And I mean, yeah, if you wanted to make it 225
And keep it.
and keep it.
Is it an average or is it based on your most expensive meal or? how do you
It
do
is
that?
an average, because obviously every meal is the same.
Right.
So I was doing most, I have like a 30-day cycle. And even toward the end of the year, I calculated almost every day
Okay,
how much it was costing. And it's about $1.75 to $2.25. It's pretty much the cost.
I think if we can move that to 225, I would say the second entree. That would be my option, just, I think
I would.
families feel enough
Correct.
financial stress right now that if we can help them out and we have the balance to do so, that
Yep.
the lunch could stay at 240 and then the second entree go down to 225.
And that would be far below, the 240 and 250. A lot of, if you call all the neighboring schools or just go look at their lunch menu, most of them are like $2.75, $3. So I think it would be very good to keep it,
generous.
be able to keep it for the families.
And free
Yeah, for
breakfast.
sure.
Yeah, free breakfast, yeah.
Yeah, nobody does that.
Well, we got a Sturman coming down the pipe here. So you just wait.
Okay. Just to recap, then, we keep all of these the same, 240 for, the K through 6 and 250 for the 7th through 12th grade, and then we'll raise the second entree from $2 to $2.25. to $2.34. We didn't talk about fees or activity tickets, but all of
Those are all the same as
Yeah.
they have been. Yep.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Otherwise, I'll take a motion to approve the fees for 24-25 as listed and amended.
I'll make a motion to approve the fees for 24-25 as listed with the amendment to the price of the lunch and the second entree.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve those fees as listed. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next item, leadership salary for 24-25. Thanks, Dr. Darsh.
I thank Scott and Scott for their work on the personnel committee side. We've got the leadership salaries here. Just kind of a brief overview that we got the principals at $7,500, both Jason and Steve. Dan Cruz and Jackie Wells for a $5,000 raise. Jeff Jager, $3,768, which was the average kind of teacher raise. And then a 5.25% raise for Steve Bresky, Curtis Eben, Jeff Cruz, and Lane Menning. And then mine will be determined following our meeting on the 24th. So in total, that's about $51,512 for the leaders.
Is yours here? It was earlier, but now it's not.
Gotta be logged in.
Are you logged in?
Did you get logged?
No.
Maybe that screen. Make that any bigger for whatever reason. Try to zoom it out, zoom it in, refresh.
You guys get back in.
Yeah, I'm good now.
Any questions at all? I'll take a motion to approve those leadership salaries for 24-25.
I'll make a motion to approve the leadership salaries as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Consider those leadership salaries as listed. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
One more thing, with Darcia being in here, did we ever talk about her salary? Is she under leadership or is she under?
She was included with the support staff because it's all coded to that nutrition fund.
Okay.
But her raise was like the support staff, 6.09%.
Okay, next item. Consider sharing agreement with George Rock, Transportation Director.
So we've been sharing the transportation director position for 4 years. 80-20, so Lane spends 4 days at Central Lyon, 1 day at George Little Rock each week. And so that salary benefits is split in that same percentage. So for this next school year, Central Lyon's portion of that contract, $72,805.60, and George Little Rock pays us for $18,201.40. And then we also generate sharing dollars, so additional 2 students in funding, which is about another $15,000 from the state. They incentivize that for schools to kind of share staff that makes sense, like the transportation position, since we share multiple activities and there's a lot of coordination back and forth between districts. So I recommend approving that agreement and then sending that over to George for their approval as well.
Any questions at all? Motion to approve that sharing agreement for the Transportation Director with George Little Rock.
I'll make a motion to approve the sharing agreement with George Little Rock for the transportation director for the year 24-25.
Okay, got a motion and a second to approve the sharing agreement with George for transportation. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Next, sharing agreement with AEA for Workplace Learning Coordinator.
Yes, so you can see the sharing agreements attached. Give you the summary. Jordan would continue in a similar role that he's supported us the last school year in regards to workplace learning. As we know, there's been many changes to how the AEAs are going to operate in the future. And so Central Lyon's basically purchasing 1 day of Jordan's contract with the AEA. He would be in our district 1 day a week, working with our teachers on best practices around workplace learning. So he's supported Sarah and Jason over the course of the last year with CAPS, but we want to take some of those best practices and spread them first, starting in the career and technical education area, so ag, family consumer science, business fields, but then also utilize Jordan working with other teachers in our building around workplace learning or any of his skill sets. He also works as a science consultant. That's going to be his kind of primary role with the AEA next year, but In the past, he's led professional learning for secondary teachers around project-based learning and just innovative instructional practices. So ourselves, Boyden Hall and Sibley O'Sheaton are kind of sharing Jordan. So he'll spend one day in each one of our school districts in this workplace learning position. Like the transportation, we generate operational sharing dollars. So similar to what you just saw for Lane, the total cost is about $24,000. We received about $15,500 from the state for operational sharing. So the net cost for Central Lyon's about $8,500 for Jordan to be here one day a week. Works out to about 38 days over the course of the entire school year next year.
So do you have it like Tuesdays is Central Line, or do you just kind of do it as you see fit, or how does that work?
We have to work out those because we talked about both, maybe being one day a week on, hey, trying to schedule this, but it might not work out that way. There's a need for a Friday, but scheduled Tuesday, so we need to, that'll be the next step to have those conversations. What's gonna work best for each school?
The more
That'd be ideal.
Yeah,
Just say,
the more
hey,
kids
Tuesday
that-
here.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I guess you just never know what, until you're underneath your belt and you say, wow, this
There's going to be
doesn't work exactly like you think it's going to.
There's going to be some shared events that are, all of our kids are going to be together. That CAPS program, Jordan or Jason can tell you more, is operated under a kind of a cohort model where we try to get kids together periodically. So it just depends upon when that stuff's scheduled. But we're excited, number one, about what CAPS has brought to our building and our community. Sarah and the kids have done a really great job. But Jordan has really supported that, and he's done a lot of coordination across the entire network. So, like kind of alluded to, we're hoping to take some of those best practices and spread them to other places in our building.
And with you still being 2 days a week with the AEA, you still have access to all those resources and continuing education.
Yep.
And we had talked about it on the phone, but I just
Right.
wanted to put that out to
Right.
YouTube or whatever,
Right.
that you're not just freestyling it from here on out,
Right.
that it's still there.
Yep.
Going forward, you could work with any school across the entire AEA system, right?
Yep. Yeah, so I think it gives a little bit of best of both worlds in that aspect of have access to that, being able to support 66 schools in Northwest Iowa, and then also honing in on a couple schools rather than being spread across 66 years.
Perfect. Any other questions? I will take a motion to approve the shared agreement with AEA for the workplace learning coordinator.
I'll make a motion to approve the shared agreement with AEA for workplace learning coordinator for 2024, 2025.
I'll second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second to approve the shared agreement with AEA for the workplace learning coordinator. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Next, the tiny mobile robot paint sprayer.
Yes, so recommending the purchase of this robot paint sprayer be used in partnership with the city. So not only the football fields that we have here, but this time of the year, baseball, softball, little league fields out at the Borman Forster fields in the fall when they've got soccer. Could be all the soccer fields will be painted by this. As you guys know, or may not know, Bruce Eckenrod does all the painting and mowing out at the ball fields all year round. And so this would, hopefully help him be more efficient with his time and his resources. And then in the fall, when we have football here, Jeff Jager and, Dan Snyder and a bunch of other folks do a lot of the painting up here. So the robot hopefully is going to make that time more efficient and allow less time spent out there marking fields.
They were currently renting one from Sioux Center, is that correct?
So essentially, we test drove this turf tank, which I provided that alternate quote there,
Yep.
from Sioux Center last year. So they came in the very first time we marked the football field last year. That turf tank did it. After we saw that, we did our research, and that's how we came across this tiny bot. And so, this tiny bot, a little less expensive, but the service that goes along with it's a little bit better than the similar product from the turf tank. The turf tank, you can get a $33,000 robot, but you don't get the 2 times a year to come and help you set all the fields up or make changes to your field, or the 24-hour, hey, this isn't working, or the robot's not doing what we want it to do. We have that with the tiny bot versus the turf tank. And as you can see there, also said, categorical funding, that PEARL, Public Education Recreation Levy, that's how it would be funded. So it's not a general fund expense.
How many people do you foresee would be trained on this? Obviously Bruce, I
Bruce,
imagine.
Jeff, Curtis,
Sure,
Jeff Cruz,
okay,
yep.
very good.
And so then, we would want, and again, anytime that we would want to train somebody else,
Yep.
we would make sure that those annual visits
Okay.
that person's out
Yep.
there, they could would receive that type of training as well.
Because looking at this, they could even do like the track on the playground here too, if you wanted.
Yeah, talking to the sales guy, even if we wanted to do the lines on the parking lot, we could say, hey, 2 years from now, the lines are faded. When you're here in the fall, we want you to program parking lots or the playground or something that we haven't thought of.
Put
Exactly.
programs on the way up to the elementary or
Yeah, so
all sorts of options.
really our creativity is what limits us.
Any other questions about that? Otherwise, I'll take a motion to approve the tiny mobile robot paint sprayer.
Okay, what's the motion to approve the training about spirit?
I'll second.
Get motion and a second to approve the tiny mobile robot paint sprayer. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next, consider audit proposal with KRP.
As Jackie's reported during her report, we made a policy change to try to give us some more flexibility in regards to the proposal that you can see here from KRP. Their maximum fee is $31,000 going forward. There's an hourly schedule in there. You took a look at that, but they're estimating 200 to 250 hours once we get rid of all the ESSER kind of single audit stuff from the federal government that we've experienced because of COVID. And then they would provide us an annual quote going forward. So we would, if we're not comfortable with that number going forward, we could revisit that. If they get to a point where they're not staffed or they don't feel like they can meet our needs, then annually we would know whether, when they're here, whether we're continuing or we're ending that agreement. Anything I missed there, Jackie?
And we'll take a motion to approve the audit proposal with KRP for fiscal year 25 and beyond.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second to approve the audit proposal with KRP. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Personnel. Do you want to take all of these at once, or do you want to take the resignations and then?
I can kind of talk about them in general if you want me to,
Okay,
and then we can take them together.
sounds good.
The resignations you can see here, our contracts for next year were due last week. So we had a couple coaches and some teacher leaders that had said that they didn't want to continue in their current roles. So you can see I included all their kind of communications as attachments there. As far as hiring goes, Riley Fulkins accepted our offer to be our preschool teacher. So that really only leaves our middle school band as our teaching position that we have open. And we've got a lead on a candidate, so hopefully that materializes. Phone interview set up for hopefully the end of this week. But then Carrie Jurens is the recommendation for football and wrestling cheer coach. Darcia alluded to Lori Crude and Caitlin Nelson in the food service department coming on board, and then future leadership roles. Didn't list them all individually, but if you click on that, you can see with our transitions, whether it's resignations or retirements, Grant Engel as the secondary CTE team leader, Malia Town is the secondary English language arts team leader, Melissa Lackey, kind of that primary early elementary team leader, and Christy Call, the elementary special education. And then with our new staff, you can see where the mentors, Emily DeBay, Sarah DeVries, Grant Engel, Ben Gerleman, Michaela Hatchie, and Melissa Lackey, matched with the new staff coming to Central Line. And then the annual appointments, these are Jackie, you can see our legal counsel resources, locally Randy Wagmeister, regionally Steve Avery, and then statewide when we've got specialty things, Allers and Cooney, but then the principals and counselors for the level 1 and level 2 investigators. And then level 3 is the sheriff's department, and myself as the
Are any of those new?
those are the same as they were previously, except for Jill Christensen instead of Kate Gerber
Okay, yeah.
as the level 2 and suicide prevention coordinator.
Any questions about the resignations, hirings, or annual appointments? Now I will take a motion and a second to approve those items as listed.
I'll make a motion to approve the resignations, the hirings, and the annual appointments as listed.
Got a motion and a second to approve those items as listed. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Announcements, dates to remember.
I would highlight that River Valley Players has their River Valley Players Junior production during Heritage Days here. It kind of starts in the middle of this week, so if you're able to come out and support those kids. They'll be at 7 o'clock each day, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday this week. This is going to be the 24th now at 5 o'clock for the superintendent evaluation. Otherwise, not this weekend, but next weekend, we host the baseball and softball tournaments here on the 22nd. We're looking for something to do that weekend. And then kind of postseason baseball, softball, it's hard to believe. Postseason baseball starts before our next official school board meeting, and then the day after is the first round of the girls. So it's going to come quickly. And then if you guys are okay with Monday the 8th at 5 o'clock, I didn't have anything else.
Does that work with your schedule? Bills, and I know it's short
It'll be
notice. So
great. It'll be awesome.
Good answer.
Okay. Any other questions or otherwise we'll move on to these buildings?
Thanks, Jordan.
Thank you, Jordan.
Thanks, Jordan.
And now we don't know who the ugliest guy on the board is anymore.
I'll appoint you.
Thanks, Jason, Steve.
You still want me?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
All the things we
I
approved.
know you
and
didn't
then
approve
you and I
anything
need
today. I was like,
to
you're still on the board, Jordan.
I can run down and
Come on.
get
Walk out that door.
that.
You